The last Tasmanian tiger did not vanish loudly. It paced, it breathed, it waited, behind wire and concrete, while the world watched and did nothing. Extinction is often described as an ending. This one feels unfinished, because something about this animal and the way it disappeared still refuses to stay in the past. Science noticed. Too late. The silence remains. Photographs freeze the thylacine mid-step, jaw open, eyes alert. Not a monster, not a myth, a living contradiction, a marsupial shaped like a dog, striped like a warning, built by evolution along a path that should have failed. Its body alone unsettled biologists. Its disappearance disturbed them more. Because extinction usually leaves answers behind, this one did not. The island remembers differently. Tasmania holds forests that still feel watched, trails that end too abruptly, nights that seem unfinished. Reports persisted long after extinction was declared. Footprints, shapes, sounds that did not belong, science dismissed them. It had already closed the case. But the unease remained, because certainty arrived faster than understanding ever did. Officially, the explanation is simple. Hunting, bounties, fear dressed as policy. Settlers saw a threat to livestock and responded with efficiency, not restraint. Records list numbers taken, dates paid, proof demanded. Science accepted the timeline. Yet simplicity is not the same as completeness. Because removing a species does not explain why it unraveled so quickly. The thylacine was not rare when pressure began. It occupied forests, grasslands, coastal edges, a capable hunter, adaptable, resilient by reputation. Other predators survived similar persecution. This one collapsed with disturbing speed. Populations did not decline evenly. They fragmented, then failed, as if something unseen had already weakened the species before humans finished the task. Breeding records tell a quieter story. Captive thylacines reproduced poorly. Even when protected, even when fed. Litters were small. Juveniles failed. Biologists expected recovery. It never came. The species did not rebound when danger receded. That troubled researchers. Because extinction usually accelerates under pressure, then slows when pressure lifts. Here, it did not slow at all. Disease became a convenient explanation. Something invisible, something uncontrollable, speculation followed. No pathogen was confirmed, no outbreak recorded, only hints, behavioral changes, unusual lethargy. Science prefers causes it can name. This one could not be isolated, tested, or disproven, which left an uncomfortable possibility. The thylacine may have been dying before anyone noticed it was endangered. Genetic evidence deepened the discomfort. Modern analysis revealed low diversity, far lower than expected for its range. Inbreeding scars, written into its DNA. A population already cornered, long before the final century. Evolution had narrowed its options. Adaptation slowed, flexibility vanished. The species was surviving, but no longer adapting. And in biology, that difference is often fatal. From a biological perspective, the thylacine should not have existed at all. It was a marsupial performing the role of a placental predator. Two evolutionary systems arriving at the same shape through entirely different rules. Convergent evolution explains the form, but not the cost, because copying a design does not guarantee copying its resilience, and nature rarely forgives imperfect solutions. Marsupial reproduction carries limits: short gestation, fragile young. Survival depends on stability, on time, on margin for error. The thylacine lived in an increasingly unstable world. Climate shifts, human expansion, ecological compression. Each pressure alone was survivable. Together, they formed a trap, one that closed slowly, then all at once. Predators sit at the edge of collapse by default. They require space, prey abundance, balance. Remove any one element and the system destabilizes. The thylacine lost all three. Prey declined. Territory fractured. Competition intensified. Biology predicts struggle. What it does not predict is how little resistance followed. The species did not fight extinction, it absorbed it. Even behavior seemed to betray it. The thylacine was cautious, not aggressive. It avoided conflict, avoided humans. This reduced encounters, but also reduced opportunity. Fear became a disadvantage. As pressure increased, the animal withdrew further. Biology favors flexibility under threat. This species responded with retreat, and retreat at scale can resemble surrender. Evolution usually leaves escape routes, alternate strategies, hidden advantages, none emerged. The thylacine showed no rapid behavioral shift, no accelerated reproduction, no niche change. Its biology held steady while the world changed around it. That stability once ensured success. Now it ensured failure. Science struggles with this pattern. Because adaptation is expected, here it never arrived. Theories multiplied after extinction. Some blamed climate, others blamed disease, others blamed chance. None aligned cleanly with the evidence. Each explained part of the collapse, never the whole. Scientific papers grew cautious, then quiet. Uncertainty settled in. Because the thylacine did not vanish in a way science could reproduce, model, or confidently explain, and unexplained extinctions are the ones that linger. Cloning entered the conversation decades later. Recovered DNA, laboratory optimism, the idea of reversal, but degraded genomes tell incomplete stories, missing instructions, broken sequences. Even if reborn, the animal would return to a world that already defeated it once. Science hesitated. Because resurrecting a species does not answer why it failed. It only risks repeating the experiment. Reports of survival never fully stopped. Blurry footage, unverified sightings, testimony without proof. Science remains unconvinced. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. That phrase lingers uncomfortably here. If the thylacine persisted undetected, it would mean extinction was declared prematurely. If it did not, it means something else. That a species can disappear without leaving closure behind. Both outcomes trouble science. Extinction is supposed to be final, a clean line between past and present. The thylacine refuses that boundary. It exists in archives, in genetic fragments, in unresolved data. Scientists return to it repeatedly, not for nostalgia, but for warning. Because its collapse followed no single rule. It broke patterns. And when extinction breaks pattern, it suggests other species may already be failing for reasons we have not learned to detect. The thylacine reframes human confidence. Conservation assumes causes can be identified, pressures isolated, outcomes predicted. This extinction resists that logic. Multiple small stresses combined, yet no clear threshold appeared. Collapse arrived without a visible tipping point. That challenges how science measures risk. Because if disappearance can occur without obvious warning, then protection based on trends may always arrive too late. Evolution is often portrayed as resilient. Given time, it adjusts. The thylacine challenges that comfort. It survived millennia, then failed within decades. Not from one catastrophe, but from accumulation, quiet pressures, incremental losses. Science struggles to model this kind of ending because it suggests fragility is not an exception, but a default, and that survival may depend less on strength than on timing. The last thylacine died under observation, measured, recorded, cataloged, and still misunderstood. Its extinction left no formula, no corrective equation. only a shape where an answer should be. Science continues forward but occasionally looks back, not to mourn, but to acknowledge a failure that cannot be fully explained, only remembered. In that silence, the Thylacine remains, not alive, not gone, but unresolved.